Good morning. So let's talk a little bit about this very challenging letter from James. I used to really struggle with James because he's so direct and frankly challenging, but I've really come to appreciate him since he says it like it is. And most of the time, me probably included the most, really need to hear it that way. Because it doesn't really matter whether we like it or not. Then, as much as it is now, is God's scriptural road to salvation. So let's hear it again and pay a little bit closer attention. Come, you rich! Weep and wail over your impending miseries, that which is coming. You've stored up treasure, and it will devour your flesh like a fire. Christ clarifies the fire for us when he talks about Gehenna today, which was a garbage dump outside of Jerusalem, which was perpetually on fire. And in doing all this, you have withheld the wages of the harvesters, and so murdered the righteous one. We're not talking about a regular crop here, right? You got to bring Christ's teaching to mind where the harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few, right? What's the harvest? It's not your wheat, it's a whole crop of souls. And the wages of the harvester are that what the church needs in order to save souls. Just like any farm, it's a communal operation. And everybody has to play their part to bring in the harvest. And Christ so deeply identifies with that harvest that to not bring even one soul, because we didn't do our job, is to murder him all over again. And maybe the most troubling line of all of it is that just like when we murdered him on the cross, and all through his passion now through the church, in either case, he doesn't offer any resistance. Doesn't show up at your doorstep, whoa, hey, the phone here, you're beating me. How? It's like he tells Paul. Paul is murdering his church. Christ shows up in that vision to him and says, it's me that you're killing. Which is good news for the faithful because he identifies so deeply with us and says of his very self. But what we do to the church, we also do to him. Now, this is about our salvation. And this applies then to each and every one of us, and most especially to us because we're all Americans. And as Americans, we are not only the wealthiest people and nation in the world, but we are the wealthiest people and nation in human history by a long shot. Even many of the poor among us are wealthier than most of the world. A few objective stats for you. The average annual income globally is $10,000 to $12,000 a year. $10,000 to $12,000 a year. The average personal income in the United States of America is $55,000 to $60,000 a year. The total net worth of U.S. households is $130 trillion. Figure in everything else in our country, the United States of America is valued somewhere between $200 and $300 trillion. Filthy rich. Now, in a certain way, that's really good news. We want prosperity for all people. But more than anything, we want them following God. And ironically, when we follow God, and I'm not here to preach the gospel of prosperity, but when we follow virtue, prosperity comes in its wake, both in the Old and the New Testament. That's why James is preaching to converted Jewish, now Christians. They are wealthy because by following God's law, it has produced prosperity in their life. And we see it all through America. We see it in the generations that have preceded us. It's actually quite striking. Let's just take the Diocese of Bismarck. All these churches that we have been enjoying in some cases for years and years, where on earth did they come from? It wasn't us. It was our forefathers who, when they built them on the backs of sacrificial love because they had nothing, but they built it somehow out of nothing. All the wealth in this country has been passed on down from them. And guess what? They were in church every single Sunday as a family. All of their children practiced their faith or were made to come, which is perfectly fine. They lived their lives by the best they could according to God's law, and when they failed, they went to confession. Somehow now we can't be bothered to live the faith, and we can't even maintain our annual budget. And we have hundreds of times more than what they did. So when we read this letter from our dear Apostle James, it should get our attention. It's serious. Because he's talking about damnation. So what do we do? Well, Jesus answers this pretty clearly in our gospel today, and he does it using this rabbinic tool of the time of extremism. I really love it. Love to preach in extremes. Gets people's attention, as did this. But there's an underlying message that he's giving us in it that you got to really pay attention to. He's saying basically this. If there is anything good in your life, right? Your eye, your hand, your foot, I think we can agree those are all good things. If there's anything good in your life that is getting in the way of your salvation, then hastily, extremely, and forcefully get rid of it. Because by keeping it, you're going to go to hell, of which he is seen as God. And he's telling us it is much easier and worth it to get rid of the good thing than it is to end up there. He's also indicating that it is going to be extremely difficult for us to get rid of that thing. which when we talk about our wealth, is always received exactly like it. So I've preached about it over the years. The way it is usually received is as if I have come to you and asked you to cut off your leg. There he is, talking about money again. You know what's crazy about that, everybody, is that my Protestant pastor friends don't even have to talk about it. They do. And the money is flowing in to the Protestant denominations of the world. But a Catholic priest stands up and he gives a homily about finance, he will be nailed to the cross. Oh, we don't talk about that in Catholic Mass. No, that's a taboo, right? It's crazy. It's like coming to you and asking you to cut off your arm or pluck out your eye or saw off your foot. The answer is very simple. It's just one word. It's called stewardship, but because of all of these stupid modern programs, it's been expanded into something that people don't even understand anymore. God, on the other hand, has very simply taught about this for the last 5,000 years. It comes down to one word, and that is the tithe, which means 10%. The Jews knew it, built right into all of our Catholic teaching, that 10% of what we have is God's. And remember, he's not resisting us. He's offering us no resistance. You can give it to him if you want, but that's what belongs to him. And it's not 10% off the back end of everything, right? We're going to give him the worst. This teaching, giving him the first fruits, goes all the way back to Cain and Abel. Abel comes to him with the first fruits of his crop, and God is pleased. Not because God needs it, but he loved him enough to give him this first thing. Here, Lord. And Cain brings a diseased animal in, the worst, and God rejects it. Because Cain is greedy. And then he becomes envious in his greed and kills his brother. That's why Paul will call greed in our lives a false god, because money competes with God. That's why Christ calls it that filthy thing. What are you going to depend on? Now, this is where a little explanation is needed, because when people hear it, they're like, you may be giving all that you can. If that's you, this doesn't apply to you. And in some cases, it may not be 10% because of strains or whatever, things are going on in your life. And you're saying to yourself, Lord, I'm giving you everything that I can. And the Lord is saying, that's enough. I remember years ago, we were doing a capital campaign, and this elderly woman comes up after Christmas Mass, and she said, I have something for you. And I said, okay. And she hands me this envelope, and she's like, I've been saving all year. She lived in community housing. I know, because it was right behind my rectory. And I grabbed it, and I'm like, well, thank you. And she says, no, open it. We're in the church after Christmas Mass, and I opened it up, and it was a $100 bill. It moved me to tears because I could see the love that she had for God. It was that widow's mite, right? $100. That doesn't mean if you've got like the lake cabin, the boat, the house, the camper, the trips, the everything that you want, and you're like, well, I don't have any money left. Yeah, you've spent God's 10%. So it's real easy, right? You make $3,000 a year, $300. $30,000 a year, $3,000 annually. $300,000 a year. See, it gets harder the more we have. $30,000 annually. If your business or you have $3 million a year, it's $300,000 annually. You say, gosh, that's a lot. I can remember I met a family once that their company managed $300 billion of the assets and they were worth billions themselves. I don't know. But in my conversation with them about tithing, they were like, we give $300 million a year. And I was like, wow. The old man looked at me and he said, you got to remember that we only have temporary custody of all this. And I got to answer to Jesus at the end of my life what I did with it. It's a good line for each and every one of us, and me included, to pray about. Because it's not just our finances, it's our whole life. Time, talent, treasure. You have temporary custody. What did you do with your life? Where did you love? Too much who has been given, much is expected. Now, in the time that I've been here, I've never talked about finances in a homily once. This is my first time. Never given a sermon about it. I should have. However, some may be thinking, and others will say, well, it's all about money. I agree with you. It shouldn't be about money. It should be all about God. But for us Americans, if it's not about money, then why do we have such a hard time giving to God what belongs to God? Who do you really serve?